Hey, good morning. Welcome to Morning Motivations with Dan Stratton. We're very excited to be bringing these to you every Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. We may be bringing them at some different times as well. Hope you've been enjoying them. I hope they are encouraging you. Hope they are helping you get your day started in the right way. Today, we're going to talk about the generous mindset. When I think about the generous mindset, I always think about a comment or a revelation I had years and years ago. It may seem simple to you, but it's a pretty powerful one. And that is, you can't give away what you don't have. So you have to learn to be a good receiver. You have to learn to be thankful. I like to use the line. I use a lot of one-liners. The better you get at being thankful, the more you'll have to be thankful for. So let's go over the two one-liners I've given you already. One is you can't give away what you don't have. And the way to receive is by being thankful for what you already have. So the better you get at being thankful, the more you'll have to be thankful for. So this is something that I talk about a lot. I wake up with in the morning. I need to receive first. So the way I start my day is with massive thanksgiving, just massive giving God the glory and all that stuff. I was hanging out with a friend yesterday, and we were talking about a home he has built for autistic children. He's got 2 homes now, and he talks about how it puts him in such a powerful place of service. Talking about how it's changed his life. He has an autistic son who's now 26 years old, and he was talking about how being thankful has built all of his businesses, about how just starting his day being grateful puts him in a position to see value, right? And so it's hard to be generous when you yourself feel deprived, undernourished, neglected, and all that stuff. So being generous is the mindset you want to get to, but you can't really start from there. You have to start by being thankful. You have to start by being it's kind of a generosity. It's a generosity that is, you can look at something and it may not seem like much, but you're generous towards it because you appreciate it or you value it highly. And I like the word appreciate because appreciate has a lot of meanings. Appreciate can mean, oh, I value that, but appreciate can also mean you can add value to it or make it bigger or make it larger. So appreciation, thanksgiving, and generosity. Now, generosity begins then. I start being thankful, I'm appreciative, and then I start getting proactive. I want to do acts of kindness today. I want to go out of my way to reach out to someone and encourage them. Text them maybe and just say, hey, I'm praying for you. Call my dad. He's in a senior assisted living home. I want to call him and see what he's doing. I just want to be generous with my time. I want to be generous with my words. I want to be generous with my resources, with my contacts. Who can I bless today? Who can I do acts of kindness for? We've created a community where we encourage one another to do 5 acts of kindness, purposed acts, not random acts, purpose acts of kindness every month. And so then we also do our best to do those 5 purpose acts of kindness, generous acts within the community. Now, this then begins to multiply because as you're doing it within the community, you are blessing people who are blessing others. So there's a multiplication effect that happens when you bless those who bless. You encourage those who encourage. You help those who help. You see what I'm saying? A lot of people like to help the person that really just needs help. You see that someone has a need and you rush out to help them. There's nothing wrong with that. You can be generous towards that person, but there's really no multiplication effect. There might eventually be a multiplication effect, but the idea of being generous to the generous is the mindset. Now, the key to the first thing that I said to you this morning, that you can't give away what you don't have, the flip of that truism that the flip of that law, I like to call it a law or a principle, is the only way you know you have something is if you're giving it away. So you want to, if you're learning something, you want to learn it, and then you want to teach it to the best of your ability. You want to share what you've learned. That's the only real way to know that you're starting to move towards understanding, towards wisdom, towards mastery, is to give away what you have, is to, a lot of people, when they think about giving or when they think about generosity, they only think about money, and they only think about giving money, and then they become very miserly. They get very zero-sum game. Like, I only have so much. They have a scarcity mindset or a poverty mindset. So generosity begins, I'm going to review a little bit here, with Thanksgiving. So I'm thankful right now that you're listening, right? I'm thankful right now that I'm at my grandson's house and he's sleeping, right? So it doesn't take much for me to just move into an attitude of gratitude. Last night I was ministering at church, and I was ministering on how faithful God is, how consistent he is, how wonderfully, it's amazing to me how people think God is so judgmental, but how amazingly forgiving he is all times. I was going through a lot of things in the book of Genesis last night with Abraham and Noah and Adam, and I was just seeing how obedience brought the blessing, but all those guys were only partially obedient and oftentimes disobedient, yet Yahweh, God, was so wonderfully good. He kept blessing. So I'm thankful for that. I know some of you don't believe in God, but the idea is being thankful moves you towards generosity. Generosity moves you towards planting seed, where you're sowing seeds of generosity. In some circles, they call it karma. What goes around comes around. The more generous you are, the more you surround yourself with other people who are generous. And the more you get into that multiplication factor, that begins to really come back your way. So that the more you give, the more you have to give. The more you think about giving, the more opportunities you see to give, and the more resources you have, so that you can begin then to give more than you did before. So these are the things that a generous mindset sets you up for. I was working with a lawyer yesterday, a good friend of mine, Janan, and we were talking about the concepts of generosity, abundance, and creativity, and how they go hand in hand. How you, with a generous spirit, are able to say things like yes to things. I think of what we're doing in Cuba. We're getting ready to do a very, very big campaign in November this year. And as I was preparing with the leaders down there, they said it's going to cost so much per head to feed them, to bus them in, to house them, and then to actually have the facility and to minister to them with sound and all the other aspects of the campaign. And so as I was sitting there and I was being thankful that I was getting to do this, and I was sitting there and I was thinking, okay, what should the budget be? And then all of a sudden I got in my spirit, be generous. Be generous. And he said, well, it's going to cost this much for 500 people, this much for 1,000 people. And basically what came up in my spirit from the generous mindset was, make it as big as you can. And we will believe for, we will give thanks for, and expect the finances to come to us through the generous mindset. So the idea is simply to say, generosity begets abundance. Generosity begets abundance, and from that abundant mindset, creativity is enhanced, so that you're not thinking about what you don't have, but you're thinking about possibilities. What would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail, right? You're thinking about, well, let's think about how this would work out. Let's not focus on what we're missing, or let's not focus on pain in relationships. Let's not focus on bad experiences from the past, but let us rather focus on the good, the generous good, the abundant good, the creative good that we could do. You see, now this takes a minute. You have to kind of hang out with generosity. And that, in my mind, is God. He is good all the time. You have to hang out with abundance. Again, I come back to God. And then you have to hang out with creativity. Now, you can do that with other people, but those people have to have a mindset of understanding how beautifully those principles work together. Now, when you think about this, generosity, abundance, creativity, all those words really begin with a core value of service. You can't be generous. I mean, you can be generous to yourself, but that's not what I'm talking about. To be generous to others, to be generous for others, to be generous in anticipation of other people's needs, to create an attitude of abundance. I always think of this one-liner: I don't have to be a dentist if I know one. I don't have to be rich if I know where the resources are and they're available to me. And I always jump over to the spiritual side. I don't have to be a savior because I know one. His name is Jesus, right? And so the idea is, as you're moving through these principles, it's what you think about. Today, I'm going to be generous. Today, I am going to bless others. Today, I'm going to think in abundance. I'm going to tap into, through Thanksgiving, a creativity. I'm going to give thanks. I'm going to give thanks for what I do have. I'm going to give thanks for my experiences. I'm going to give thanks for my trials and tribulations. I'm going to give thanks for my obstacles. I'm going to give thanks for my family. I'm going to give thanks for my church. I'm going to give thanks for my education, right? I'm going to go right on down the list, and I'm going to stay in that thankful place. And from that thankful place, what builds up is my feeling that I am fully supplied. Fully supplied. And then from that place of being supplied, now I can look around to see where I might have an overflow, where I may have an abundant supply, an abundant supply of joy, an abundant supply of information or wisdom that I can bring to a situation, right? And then I share it. I share it. And then I start to realize that if I'm meditating this, I'm in a good mood, so I'm approachable now, and people aren't afraid to ask me, a question, or ask me for help, or ask me for whatever it is, whether it's in the prisons, whether it's in Cuba, whether it's in the business network that I work with, all the way up to the top of people and managing and raising and deploying billions of dollars. These principles work. And the more generous you are, the more thankful you are, the more creative you become, and the more solutions begin to reveal themselves to you. Now, as I've said many times in this, I believe in God, and I believe that He speaks to me, but He speaks to me from my discipline of giving thanks, my discipline of meditating generosity, my discipline of receiving through giving thanks, but with the intention to then distribute, to give away. So I want to thank you today. I hope you enjoyed this today. I want to thank you for tuning in to Morning Motivations. If you have questions, if you have needs of any kind, if you want to engage on some level, reach out to us. We are building an audience now. It's going great. Lots of people are tuning in, but we want to engage, and we want to hit topics that you want to talk about. So please engage. Please let us know you're out there, and we'll send you stuff. It'll be a lot of fun as we get to move and be together more and more often. Please tune in. We'll be back next Thursday at 9 a.m. and maybe even in between.